Welcome to Matt's Garage. Today, I'm going to be showing you what's going on with dashboards. Or I'm going to show you my old dash, show you the new dash, and show you how I'm modifying the new dash. This is for a Scout too, but it really, any vehicle where you're making a dash or you bought it and there's no dash, this can apply to you. I am not a fabricator, but I am fabricating for this, which is kind of cool. I'm kind of proud of it. So let me mount the camera up and then I'll show you what's going on. All right, so I'm going to mount this up. You can see the Scout has been gutted. I've ripped all the Rhino lining out. The doors still have their stuff in it, but otherwise it's pretty much gutted. So that is the Bronco dash. Let me go get the old dash. So tastes change. Oh, sorry. Tastes change over time, right? Like I made originally it's aluminum. Sorry, let me back up. Before I knew anything about anything, I bought a stainless steel piece of metal to make a dash out of. I couldn't bend it. I couldn't cut into it. I couldn't do anything with it because I didn't have any tools. Like, and certainly none that could work with stainless. So that was like a waste of $70, like back in '97 or something. And then I bought this aluminum one, and it was much longer back then. Like it looked more like the Bronco dash, but it didn't have any of this braking because I just bought a sheet of metal. So I'd cut my knuckles and my knees every time I got in and out of the Scout because this was like open. So then I figured out, and then I got the cage and it wouldn't fit at all. So I bent these ears on there and then got different speakers. I had to fill that hole and then painted it black. And I didn't know you had to use like self-etching primer. I mean, it was just a learning process. So anyway, so this was my original dash. And it's not terrible. I mean, this was my first attempt at a dash. And I had a professional, like a machine shop, cut the holes out. But the electrical hung out underneath. It just wasn't really professional. And, all the gauges were mechanical or whatever, and it wasn't clean. So, out with the old and with the new old. So this is a Bronco dash. Now this one's a great start for a lot of projects actually. If you have a project that didn't have a dashboard, especially if it's like a kind of a boxier vehicle, this early Bronco blank dash is a good starting point because if you buy just plain sheet metal, it doesn't have any contours, and while you think it's going to look cool, like having a flat piece of metal, it just it falls flat visually. So the nice thing about this is there are some contours here which gives it a nice visual break. It comes with drawbacks like the locations and stuff, but it's not, I'm going to have to make modifications anyway, so I don't really care. The first thing I had to do was, it seems like the Bronco steering wheel's offset to the right more than the Scout one, so I had to cut this to bring the dash over, which means I've got a little bit of a gap on that side I have to fill with like an inch of sheet metal. Up here has reliefs for 3 defroster vents, and this distance doesn't work. So I got to make a piece of sheet metal that spans this cowl, and the Scout cowl is kind of goofy because it's got an arc this way and an arc this way, so it's a complex shape that I have to then break into this existing one. This is about the right height and right distance. I took that steering column, which by the way is just like a chrome tilt steering column with floor shift and no key, so the key's going to go on here. Got a floor shifter obviously with the 5-speed, so the steering column is very clean, chrome, simple, but it needs to be in right about there for it to work with the seat and the steering wheel. So the dash needs to be back here, okay? And for those of you familiar with Bronco dashes, you know that the Bronco had a big gauge right here. And I really don't like that setup. I mean, I think Bronco guys learn to love it, but I don't like taking my eyes off of the road when I want to get my operating information on my vehicle. So I've been playing around with the idea of how do I get gauges that I can see up here with this contour, and let me get it, show you, and then I'll show you how I made it. So I made this like gauge pod that you actually see in modern car design, but I made it of metal so it kind of works with the rest of it, and I'm basically just going to French it into this. I'm going to cut here, cut there, and then set it in so it kind of looks like it was always meant to be. It won't be perfect to the eye, but I think it's good. It locates it right. It doesn't interfere with the windshield. Now, if you're wondering how am I going to fit a gauge so close to the back here, let me show you. So, but first let me show you how it's made. So I basically I have a big sheet of 18 gauge here. I cut this out in a rectangle, put my gauges on here, measured them, used the hole saw to mark out some nice radius that match the gauge size, and then I cut that out, and then using that, I then cut, well, not using that, but I actually did. What I did was I took this and I kind of walked it. I marked it and then I walked it all the way down to figure out the perimeter. I mean, you could do that with other ways, but, and then I cut out a little longer 1-inch piece of metal. I broke this angle using my little break that I made on the press, but then this stuff I all bent by hand. Okay, and I basically kept bending it, kept working it. It takes some patience, you know. You don't want to overdo it. And then once I got it to fit well, then I just welded on some gussets that I'm going to put weld nuts on the back of, and then I might just have 1, 2, 3, quarter 20 screws. So that is how that's going to work. I bought this 3 7/8 hole saw to make the holes for the gauges. Now let me show you these gauges and how they work. So I did a lot of research on gauges, and you must know if you've done the same that gauges are hugely expensive. So what I did was I went and didn't go cheap, but I didn't go crazy expensive. I actually went to Speed Hut. This is upside down, but I'll show you right side up. American-made gauges, and they're pretty sweet. Let me just show you this one, for example. And they are not a sponsor. I am my only sponsor. So this is my quad gauge, and look at how thin this is. That's 1 inch. I mean, it's unbelievable. And like I said, it's all electronic, so you don't need that tube with the ferrules for the oil pressure or the capillary type tubing for the water temp. It's all just a sensor, and it all comes with it. So like this is the oil pressure sending sensor, plenty of cable. So this is the Speedo, almost a full sweep, and then a 90-degree tack sweep. And then that is also cool because it's GPS, so no cable from the Dana 20, no calibration. It figures it out. So I'm really excited. And again, you could do 0 to 60 time. I mean, not that it matters for the Scout, obviously, but if you had a vehicle that could do 0 to 60 in under 20 seconds, then you could do 0 to 60 times. The gas gauge you can program, like it comes with presets for Chevy, Ford, all the big ones, and then you can program it. So like at X ohms, it's empty, X ohms, it's full. So anyway, because that's so thin, I can fit it on that dash up in that location. So I'm gonna drill out these holes, mock everything up, and then, I don't know, then we'll see how she goes. What do you think? That doesn't look too bad, does it? I don't know. It's not the ugliest thing I've ever made. I think I mentioned that I had to offset this, so I actually knew how to fill the end of this with some sheet metal. So I've got all these bent up, all my extensions. I got some 3/4 20 weld nuts there. These are going to go into the sandblaster along with that stuff. These weld nuts are going to go sort of there as a backer on the other side, obviously. And screw there. This is a kit I ordered from Bob Drake, but I don't know if they make it or what, but it's basically a whole collection of plugs. So, you know, the Bronco dash has this hole where the windshield bolts go, and since I'm using it for a custom application, just a little too big. I'm gonna use these because they make it so you don't have to put so much weld into it. Oh. So it's good for closing up holes in firewalls and such. If you watch a lot of car shows, you know about these. It's a little perfect panel alignment tool. Kind of necessary for this kind of work. If you're not happy with the fitment, stop, adjust, check. Don't weld it if it's not where you want it to be. A lot easier to fix it now.
Dad, we're having dinner
Okay,
in like 2 minutes, so if you want to join us, you can and tell.
I will. You heard the younger lady. I barely did have my earplugs in, but I'm gonna grab some dinner and I'm gonna come back and finish. I've got the edge welded up. Obviously, I'm not grinding it down right now, but the hole's closed there. And the hole closed on this side too. So now I've got my gauge pod, right? And the idea is to set it in. I basically want this edge to be flush with this edge. So I'm going to center it on here. And there's just a couple of questions. One is, how far down do I want to go? I'm thinking just far enough so that this edge is flush. Because if I go down to here, this will actually be inset. So, yeah. And I don't know how deep that is. My guess is right around there somewhere. So I'll go slow and I'll cut it as I go. Or I can just tack it and bend it into place. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Let's mock it up. See you next time on Matt's Garage.